was a pay-per-view. Yeah, I think that was. I can't remember the name of the show, but yeah.
Either way, it happened on TNA.
Hmm.
So the world champion, AEW world champion, wrestled on a TNA show.
Yes.
Has Cody Rhodes ever wrestled on a TNA show as world champion?
Doesn't seem like it now.
No. Okay. So I'm not going to keep this going because obviously I think we see where we're going with this.
Hmm.
And the reason I'm bringing this up is because last night was a TNA pay per view, Slammiversary. They did a good house. They had about 4,100 people there. And on that, they did have some TNA, they had some NXT talent.
Yes. Yeah.
In one match, they had Wes Lee return to reform the Rascals.
Yes.
And then they had the No Quarter Catch crew, which is Charlie Dempsey, uh, Tavion Heights, and Miles Bourne. And they had a 6-man tag match.
Hmm.
And the Rascals won, the TNA team, but it did have Wes Lee on the team too. So it was really also kind of NXT versus NXT. And that was it. Now, would you say any of those NXT names that I gave are big stars?
I guess Wesley kind of is the biggest that you mentioned there, and that's probably the biggest that has come over to TNA then, right?
Yes, I'd say so. And so to me, and the other thing I just want to bring up with this, it's like I don't necessarily know that we've seen any real evidence that this has been a business mover for TNA.
Hmm.
Now, people are pointing to this house that they did, this 4100, which it's a good house. I'm not saying it's not a good house.
Although,
However,
yeah.
yeah, however, I don't know how much I can attribute this to TNA because TNA has been doing pretty okay on pay-per-view lately. They haven't necessarily uh been been having empty arenas for their big pay-per-views. So, like, let's take a look at the TNA show that they did in Chicago back in June,
Uh-huh.
Against All Odds.
Yeah.
Uh, that one, I know they sold that place out. That was the one where they had Jordan Grace versus Tatum Paxley,
Yeah.
but Tatum Paxley was not announced.
Yeah.
So there was no like, oh, this is going to be a TNA person. So I don't think you could attribute that to the partnership.
Yeah.
And they sold fine there. Let me see if I can find the. I'm just pulling up on Cage Match right now. Then they did that TNA. Then that's Countdown to Under Siege. That's not what I was looking for. Under Siege. That was the other one.
Yeah.
So that one was in Albany, New York, and that one also did pretty well.
Yeah.
And that one did not have any people in the building. I mean, it did. It was pretty full. It was a crowd. The crowd was pretty full.
Hmm.
So I don't know that we're seeing the same kind of real benefits that we're seeing with WWE or any more so than we would see with AEW. Now it's hard to compare attendance for AEW because it was in the middle of the pandemic and there was no crowds, so I
Yes.
can't do that.
Yeah.
But I do know for a fact that Kenny Omega was popping those ratings for TNA whenever he was on there.
Yes, he was. Yeah.
I
Uh,
don't think that we've seen that at all with TNA.
well, I would point out two other things with all this. The where did they do this? The Verdun Auditorium in Montreal. Um, I do know also that it was mentioned that a lot of the tickets were sold at around $13 Canadian, also for that matter, which is more like $9, $10 American, for those listening, or euros for those listening in European language land, which I guess is also English. Let's not get into it. Uh, if it's possible that they didn't even break $100,000 gate on this show, which is alleged. They're saying is their biggest show in a very very long time. Factually correct with how many tickets sold or were distributed. Another thing to point out, possibly just distributed. Um, so that's one thing that I just wanted to mention with that. The other thing is I don't know if I think they did promote a little bit the possibility of some NXT folks coming to this show, to Slammiversary, but a lot of these tickets had sold even before Jordan Grace went on to NXT.
Yes.
So I don't think that you can put a lot of impact on Charlie Dempsey or Wes Lee. And also, for that matter, looking at the card, it looks like that's the only match. Is that right? That had Joe. Well, no, wait. I'm now thinking about Joe Hendry being an NXT guy.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Maybe that's what the point is for me to
Right.
think that Joe Hendry's an NXT guy and not think about him as a TNA guy. And I do recall when looking at the data for NXT's YouTube views, which it's a metric that WrestleNomics is also posting every week in addition to their rating stuff. I noticed that a lot of the video watching for NXT programs is powered behind TNA people appearing in those videos. And anecdotally, from people that watch TNA but don't want to watch NXT, I'm hearing anecdotally that a lot of those people are just not watching NXT live, even when they know that somebody from TNA might be appearing. They'll just watch the YouTube videos that recap it. So it does sound like that, and that, as you pointed out also, the ratings for TNA's programming haven't really spiked at all because of these people that are coming over from NXT. So NXT watchers are not going over and watching TNA. TNA watchers aren't really, they're keeping up with what their favorites are doing in NXT, but they're not going out of their way to watch NXT, like the program NXT. So I'm not sure really if it's depends on how you want to, quantify. Of course, I think that ratings aren't the be all end all, but it's intriguing to me that they're not getting anybody. It doesn't seem like either side is getting anybody new to watch their products live. And
Yeah.
and I would just say also, again, like as you were pointing out, the types of people that we're talking about, it's an NXT TNA crossover. It is not a WWE TNA crossover. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Right. No, and I think that's my point. Is like I'm not necessarily knocking this partnership. I think this is honestly good because I think WWE has realized that they cannot be behind their iron curtain anymore, and they need to branch out and work with other promotions because they see that AEW got a lot of buzz and it made them look kind of cool that they were doing all these like dream matches that people didn't think could actually happen.
Yeah.
So now TNA is trying to do that now, or TNA and WWE is trying to do that. The My issue with this partnership, and first of all, and I wanted to bring up that Brian Hebner quote because I wanted to point out how ridiculous it is.
Yeah.
And it's even more so ridiculous because I'm seeing the kind of relationship that WWE could have with TNA. I'm seeing it with other promotions because you look at Marigold.
Yes.
I would argue that Marigold has benefited much more from a WWE partnership than TNA has because they have essentially have this almost formal establishment that they're going to have talent from WWE coming back and forth, and they just had Io Shirai wrestle Utami in what could be the greatest women's match of the year.
I guess I still haven't watched it yet, but it is also intriguing to me that, again, I think that was a no-win scenario booking decision. But continue.
Well, if she doesn't come back,
Yeah.
like if she comes back and puts over Utami, then even more so, that's showing what a great relationship this probably is for them.
Yes.
And then you take a look at the Noah situation. They brought AJ Styles over.
Mm-hmm.
They had AJ Styles wrestle Marufuji. I mean, these are the things they could do for TNA.
Yeah.
But they're not.
Yeah. Well,
So I want to point. I just wanted to. That was my main point. Is that I don't think that this relationship has necessarily been all, rainbows and sunshine
yes.
that everyone's kind of painting it as. Because I think that it's leaving a lot to be desired. And especially if this ends up being a situation where, it's basically the old WWE playbook and they end up just poaching the people that got over, like, Joe Hendry.
Yeah, that's somebody that I really want us to get on through the tier list coming up.
Mm-hmm.
It was asked to Sean Ross Sapp in his Discord server what the length of Joe Hendry's contract was, and I believe that he answered it very briefly as just a while. He didn't give a long detail, and I also believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that most TNA contracts are around 2 years.
That sounds right.
So even if it is quote unquote a while, it's within 2 years at the most. And he's been in TNA for over a year at this point. So that's yeah, he first appeared in TNA in September 22. In this most recent run in TNA. So in theory, it's either that his contract is up this year or it's up in 2 years. But as we saw with Jordan Grace's contract, it sounds like they're willing to renegotiate it or change the terms of it to let them out a little bit early. Because it looks like Jordan Grace is getting out of her contract like 6 months early. So it is.
Is she getting out of her contract though?
It says that it's been reported that her contract is up in January, and that was earlier than expected.
But does that mean that she's getting out of it, or does that just mean that they were wrong on the date and she's getting out early? Earlier than they thought.
The way that I believe that it was stated, and let me look at that one more time. 1 second. The contract was amended. It was originally supposed to go through summer of 2025, but it was amended to finish January 2025.
Okay.
So, they went back after the fact to change the contract, and that happened recently. The change to the contract. So, it's intriguing to me considering the timing with her time in WWE, and it makes, as you're kind of pointing out, it makes it seem like TNA are being kind of geeks, perhaps.
Yeah, and I'm not necessarily, and here's the thing, I'm not even necessarily arguing that this is bad for the talent in the sense that, hey, they're getting some exposure and they're getting out there. I'm not even necessarily saying that this is a bad relationship because I think TNA is going to benefit from it. I just think that the idea that it has been, that we're comparing this to the AEW relationship and it all saying this is, better is absurd to me.
Well,
and I just wanted to kind of make that point.
The possible counter I will offer is that it essentially was just about Kenny Omega. Right.
Yeah, but they also had Cage over there, and he was their champ for a while.
Yes. Yeah, Christian was like the transition out of the Kenny Omega.
Now, if they decide to put the belt, here's the thing: if they put the belt on a WWE talent and have that WWE talent over there for a little while, like a genuine name, like a good name,
yeah. Well, yeah,
I will stop because I think that would be something that would help TNA a lot.
Yeah, but also for that matter, for what you're saying is, as been pointed out again, it's essentially just an NXT relationship. It's not a WWE relationship. So when you're saying that kind of level of talent, you're talking about well, who's the current NXT champion?
But then you have to ask why did TNA get an NXT relationship when Marigold got a full-blown, what appears to be WWE relationship?
I think that tells you a lot about what WWE thinks about TNA.
Yeah, that seems to be the case, yes.
Yeah. And then, with the Noah stuff with Marufuji, it says
I know it's Amoeba. It's
Amoeba thing. I get that. That's what I was exactly where I was going to go with it, was just that it says that it's just him appearing at SummerSlam. Also, for that matter, it's not even necessarily him doing anything at SummerSlam. I think I think it's just a way for people that have Amoeba subscriptions in Japan to get them hyped up to watch SummerSlam on Amoeba or Bima or Abisa. Um,
Whatever it is.
so
I thought it's amoeba. Is it not amoeba?
Abima,
Abima.
yeah.
Abe-
So yeah,
it's something.
yeah, it's something, and I think we mentioned a week or two ago, possibly. They do have some NXT talent, like Josh Briggs, who we mentioned had a match that a lot of other people really loved from the Stand and Deliver show earlier this year. That they're competing in Noah's equivalent of the G1, which of course is called the N1, which great naming. No notes. But yeah,
honestly, that's even, I think that's more than TNA's got.
I agree. Yeah.
So yeah, it's just it's strange. I'll just leave it at that. I think it's very strange.
That's fair. Yeah. Well, how about we get into the tier list for this week? Speaking of things that are strange,
should we just skip the break and just power through?
I think so. We haven't been on for a while, have we?
I think we've been on for about 15-20 minutes.
How do you do you need a break?
Also, no, I don't need a break. It's just like this will be a short episode, I think.
Yeah, I just think it's a shorty.
Okay.
Congrats, everybody. It's a little bonus episode, but it's also like literally our weekly episode, so it's not really a bonus episode. I'm not cooked.
Short bonus episode.
So first up this week, let's just look at what the tier list was looking like coming out of last week. There it is on the screen for the people that are watching the podcast on YouTube. If you're listening to the podcast, just know that there is a tier list appearing on your screen, and at the end of this episode, we'll just run through all of the names on the tier list. This is what it's going to be looking like for next week for the people that are watching on the YouTube. This is the new tier list. So we're gonna start with Dustin Rhodes, who might be a new addition. How are you feeling about Dustin Rhodes going on the tier list, Doug? Again,
I still don't understand why we're putting him back or recommending him back.
Did you miss the news?
I guess I did. What I missed on the news?
It's been confirmed that his contract expires in September.
Oh yeah, I still. I don't know. Would they bring him back to WWE?
That's the question. Yeah. I'm not 100% sure that they would.
Yeah, I don't know how I missed that. All right, but yeah, but still, either way, I think I would still go maybe F tier.
Yeah, so he also came out after the news broke that his deal is up in September, that he kind of was defiant about the reports that were coming out that his contract was up in September, but at the same time, like, recognizing, yeah, it comes up in September, big deal, big whoop, we're talking, you know?
He's a worker.
So
I still think, if Cody wants him there,
yeah,
and wants to do something, I think maybe they'll bring him over. But here's the thing, I think Cody's smart.
Yeah.
Cody's a smart guy. He has to know that there's no way that he is going to top that match from 2019 with Dustin.
No.
When they did Double or Nothing. Like, and in fact, I get the feeling that Cody is smart enough that he would refuse to run that back, knowing that he could not top that.
Yeah.
And because of those reasons, I don't think he wants to do that story. So unless Dustin wants like some type of backstage deal, I think he'll stay. And because that's the other thing. The other issue is he has a backstage deal right now at AEW. And to be completely honest, I think that he's pretty well respected, and I think he's pretty well valued in AEW backstage.
Yeah.
So for those reasons, unless WWE is going to offer him some massive money deal, I don't know. Now, I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but I would need to see a little bit more evidence.
Yeah, these are the path that I could see with him in WWE is more of a well, the last ride, a last run, which would probably see him as a face during allegedly the entirety of it, and tag teaming with Cody rather than fighting Cody. Um, that's one possibility if he were to go to WWE after this contract ends in September. I think that I think that Tony Khan would be willing to give him the retirement run that he would be looking for. Uh, I don't think that he's necessarily going to get anything better in WWE other than that kind of tag run with Cody. Like that's I think the top that WWE would be offering him.
If he jumps, it's not going to be for money.
No, no, and I don't think I don't think he necessarily needs that anymore either, right?
No, and I also once again, I just don't think that Cody and Dustin doing something on TV together is anything that they need to do or want. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's a bloodline, so got him. I think also an interesting thing for him, to fantasy book a little bit. I actually think that it would be interesting if he went to Ring of Honor. I think that him having a little run with the Ring of Honor world title, especially if they do something like the model that I was talking about last week or 2 weeks ago about doing like TNA style little residencies, taping sessions around the country. I think that that would work really well.
I think it could, yeah.
Because as we've mentioned, or you just mentioned too, he does have a kind of a backstage role. He helps the women's division a lot. He's very well respected amongst the women's wrestlers, and I think that if he was hanging around in a Ring of Honor and helping develop the kinds of the women that are not going to be on AEW TV just yet, at the same time that he's wrestling in the men's division and be having a final run on screen, I think that that would be a nice way to send him off if he wants to go that route. I don't know what more on screen that the quote unquote main roster AEW has for him.
Yeah, no, I don't think, and we've seen that he doesn't have a whole lot more on. He likes to go on a match every now and then on Collision and Bleed or Rampage.
Yeah,
and that's about it.
But he's like guaranteed like a 3.5, 4-star match every single time he does that nowadays, which is
he's really good.
Yeah,
he's still really great.
Yeah,
and he'll do the thing where he'll just like he's really good at getting the crowd behind him.
Yes,
being a strong baby face and really rallying them for him.
Yeah.
And then he loses, and
that was he's somebody that like I know that it came up a little bit after the Owen about Jeff Jarrett. People were so hyped about Jeff Jarrett possibly winning the Owen, which is just a phrase that I'm sure that a lot of the people that saw him debut a few years ago would be shocked to hear them think even that they're hyped about Jeff Jarrett possibly winning a tournament with Bryan Danielson and Hangman Adam Page in it. For also, they might be surprised that Bryan Danielson is in AEW, but that's another question. I think that there's part of me that just wants Dustin in the Continental Classic. It's like I think that he gives a nice floor match. Like it's going
Dustin in the Continental Classic would be fantastic.
Yeah. Like
they need, because they need those people that can like take some losses and just have great matches.
Yeah.
Like, similar to what Daniel Garcia was last year.
Yeah, that was the mold that I was going in. Although he would be fitting the place of more like, a Jay Lethal kind of placement in the Continental Classic. But I think that the story that Daniel Garcia was having of like, I need to prove myself. I just gotta get one match. I just need 3 seconds, and that's all I need to prove myself. Like, that is a Dustin Rhodes story,
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hyping myself into him staying, which might be a bad choice logically for the tier list itself, but I do think that there are more possibilities for him staying in the AEW ecosystem than there necessarily would be in the WWE. Like, I think that we established that the one thing that in WWE he could have, the only thing, is a tag run with Cody. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
Maybe he could be NXT champion.
Like, it doesn't feel like they want to bring Goldust back. I don't know.
Well, I mean, Ethan Page is NXT champion, so maybe he could be NXT champion.
Oh man.
Is that what
Listen,
pops the ratings of CW?
I don't know why, but I just really feel like Dustin's staying.
Okay. Well, the committee agreed with you on this one. I'm gonna return Justin to the tier list and put him in F tier to start off with.
Okay, Dustin Rhodes, F tier.
The next person that we're going to talk about here is let's move over to Trevor Lee, or Cameron Grimes, as a lot of the listeners probably know him as.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I believe that his non-exclusive window, his 30 days notice or 90 days notice, I can't remember which one. It did expire now, so
well, I know he's wrestling in Chicago. I think next week.
Mm-hmm. How are you? That's really the news that's come up with him, is just that it seems that his non-compete window, he's actually now fully released from WWE. Uh,
I
where
don't think it
you don't think it changes anything?
doesn't change anything for me because I think regardless, I think we already had whether or not it was. We all knew what he was going to do. He was going to do something one way or the other. I don't think whether that window expired or not has changed anything.
Yeah,
He's still a C tier guy to me because I think we discussed this before, where it was kind of this idea of, he could go somewhere, he could go anywhere, or he could just be the indie guy.
yeah, I
And I could see either one.
yeah, and I kind of like the indie guy mold for him personally. I think that his options are, well, there were some people that were saying that I think it was Swerve was like kind of hyping him up on Twitter. But I don't personally, still I don't really see him as a quote unquote main roster AEW person right now.
No.
I could see him being, if what they're doing with Ring of Honor with signing folks like MXM continues, and they try to do a like a little bit of a refocus on the division of Ring of Honor being its own division and having, dedicated tapings for Ring of Honor proper, I could see him as a Ring of Honor guy easily.
Yeah.
But yeah, it still doesn't really change where I'm placing him in my mind of the 50-50 between that kind of thing, TNA possibly also, or him just continuing with the indies. What were you gonna say, Doug?
I was just gonna say, it's like I don't necessarily think he's leaning in any one direction.
Yeah.
Which is why to me he's like a quintessential C tier.
Yeah, and the committee agreed with us on this one also, that we're just gonna keep him in C tier for the moment. But I think it was worth it just to do a vibe check.
Yeah.
It was not, overwhelmingly everybody just saying just keep him where he is. There was a definite swell of folks that wanted to move him up at least one tier just because they feel like it's a little bit more imminent of him possibly moving somewhere. But the thing is, again, as we've been discussing, we're not really sure where that is, or if that could just be him moving around the indies for the next, forever. So he is going to be staying in the C tier for now. Let's hit the next one I'm gonna hit is a little bit easy for us to hit. It's Natalya.
Okay.
It came out that she's re-signed with WWE.
Yeah, I think we were pretty consistent with that one. We thought that she was likely going to be sticking around.
Yeah, we had her in D tier previously, so that was, we weren't confident of her leaving WWE. We thought it was fairly likely that she was going to be staying in WWE.
Yeah, and it's what we expected. I mean, let's be honest. She's someone who has been with the company forever.
Mm-hmm.
Her husband essentially has a job for life there if he wants it.
Yeah.
And then for various reasons, and she's always been well respected in that locker room as a locker room leader. I don't necessarily think, unless she's like really itching to have like a real run
Hmm.
somewhere, that she'd want to, because she's not going to get that in WWE at this point. She's just a, you know, gatekeeper
Yeah.
type. That's her role. That's what her role is going to be. She's never going to move above that in WWE. So unless she wanted to go somewhere else to try to push beyond that, I don't see that was her moving. And the other thing is, where like her option would be maybe TNA, because even if she went to AEW, I don't necessarily see her role being any different.
Not necessarily. No, I think that her role in AEW would have been as an upgraded from Taya Valkyrie, but that kind of area of a role.
Yeah, she wouldn't. I don't. She wouldn't be carrying any belts.
Probably not. Like she might like get in the finals of the Owen, maybe a TBS run, maybe. But I don't think that she would be like having a long run on the TBS. I don't think that she would necessarily be having the world title.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either. I agree.
But yeah, it's just to hit on one other thing with that. Yeah, it's a multi-year contract. It was signed in June, late June, so they just didn't come out for a week or two after it was signed. There was also interest in TJ Wilson, as we were just discussing, going to other companies as well. So it did seem like they were a package deal this time, which is interesting, as we've discussed before with relationships and spouses and girlfriends and all those kinds of things before. But I think with this scenario, it's that like both of them are pretty highly respected people, and people want both of them. It's not like, oh yeah, I guess we're gonna have to get TJ. Darn. It was like, oh wow, we can get both of them. That's great.
Yeah.
um, so
so I think that, yeah, we're pretty accurate on that. We thought they were staying.
yes, yeah, I think that we were very accurate with this one. So congrats to us, pat on the back. The last person for this week that we're going to discuss is Jake Lee. Are you familiar with what's going on with Jake Lee, Doug, at all, or should I give you a lore dump?
Give me the. I mean, I besides what's going on in the G1, no.
So, before the G1 occurred, Jake Lee had a match at Noah on the same show that AJ Styles appeared on. All the kids loved that one. So the eyes were on Noah, and Jake Lee had his match, and after the match, it sounded like Ghetto came out, and he had a shirt with him, and he threw the shirt at Jake Lee and said, "Welcome to the War Dogs." Jake Lee puts it on, and he says, "Bye, Noah." Now, this was posted. What accounts do you think this was posted on? Like official accounts of any of these promotions?
I'm gonna guess this was on the Noah.
It was on the Noah account. Yes, they did. Yes. They did post this, and they posted the transcript of like that. You know, those hits that I hit from that video footage. Yeah. So I think that's the storyline.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess that maybe on the last night of the G1, he's gonna turn on Gato and go back to Noah. That's my prediction here.
Mine is I think that this might be a Jack Perry situation, where when Jack was in New Japan, they kept up kayfabe of he's still suspended in AEW. This is a little bit, counter to what AEW really wants. And he's going to join House of Torture, the most evil counter management faction that New Japan really has right now, I think. Because, again, War Dogs has Gato in it, so it's like, how counter management can you really be, or against the establishment, when you have the Booker in your faction? So he joins House of Torture, and people were like, well, maybe just a cute little thing. And but they were vehement in announcements. He is an official member of House of Torture. And when he left New Japan for that run and came back to AEW, they were vehement. He's still a member of House of Torture. I think that that could be what's going on with Jake Lee, is that they are officially adding him to the War Dogs, and that's the long-term plan. But that, yeah, he's just going to go back to Noah once the G1 is over. Now, it is possible, of course, that this is real, or that it's the kayfabification of something that's really happening backstage of Jake Lee actually leaving Noah for New Japan. But I don't think that we're going to see the dust settle and get an answer on that until after the G1 is over.
I agree. But I do think he's I don't know. I don't see him jumping to New Japan.
I
Not yet.
I think it's possible, just because, again, it kind of makes me think about what we were talking about with TNA a little bit. Although TNA's risk is losing people from the partnerships because of kind of WWE scooping them away, but it's possible that maybe he's looking at the state of things in Noah and saying to himself, I don't really want to be here anymore. Um,
Could be. I think I'll tell you what. We'll revisit Jake Lee after the G1, I'm sure.
yeah,
I'm sure that we'll have a nomination at that point to kind of figure out what's going on with him, and then we can make a decision then.
yeah, I think that that's probably where we're gonna go with all this. It's just, waiting to see. It's, oh no, I'm saying we're, let it play out. Oh no,
Let it play out.
oh no.
Wait, yeah, we'll see. That's my catchphrase. It seems at points.
um, just like we'll see what happens with the new Collision theme song. If it lasts either.
It was all right.
I didn't like it. I, I,
I listen. I'll say this. I much prefer this. I love the setup. I know a
oh
lot
yeah,
of people were up and back and forth on it. I really like this. I like it whenever they're just pointing the hard cam at the ramp,
hmm
and I don't have to look at stupid signs and people trying to get themselves over in the front row. Let's let's just go back to just doing that all the time because that's so much better.
I think I'll, we'll have to wait and see with how it goes over the course of the residency. But I have a good vibe after the first show of it, of like how the crowd will be.
I hope they just keep doing like monthly residencies. Like
Y-
find wherever they're gonna do the next big AEW pay per view, just do a month residency leading up to that pay per view in that town.
I would not do it in that town. I would do it in a different town, because then you
I
might
think
be cannibalizing your sales.
I don't know that it would necessarily hurt the pay per view. It might I don't know. I think that that would be a cool way to build up to it.
Yeah. I think that my opinion on whether they should continue doing this depends on how the rest of the run goes. Personally, for Collision in particular. Um, but
I think it's gonna help Dynamite's ticket sales just because that's become
my
the touring show.
um I think that 1 month of doing this won't really affect the ticket sales, but I do think that doing this for multiple months would affect the ticket sales, just by, proportions and things like that.
And
Um,
we also need to see how well the tickets move
After this
every
week. Yeah.
after this week. Absolutely.
I did like that it felt. I liked the camera work a lot on this episode of Collision. I know that we're getting we're getting off track of WrestleWatch, but we do watch wrestling here.
Yes.
I liked the way that it looked because it reminded me of two different things. It reminded me of New Japan in the camera work because they were using a lot of the cameras at ringside, and they were capturing a lot more of the facial emotions of the wrestlers in the ring. And this is also the case with the hard cam. They zoomed in real close for a lot of those interviews in the ring. Like for FTR, they were zoomed in right on Dax's head, whereas usually when they're in an arena, it's kind of wide body and still kind of has the crowd in it and everything like that. So I liked that a lot, and I just like the vibe. Also kind of reminded me of the videos that I've seen, because I didn't watch it live, of NXT when it was before USA era, the network era. Um, it just looked like that, and it looked like something that was a little bit more underground, a little bit more like, oh, look at all these cool people that showed up here in Arlington to watch this show. You know, it's like a secret, but like a secret that you can get in on at some point.
Yeah.
That was the vibe I was getting for this episode of Collision.
Yeah.
Every single match, the crowd was into, and
Yeah.
and I think that having that kind of environment of how they set it up helps with that.
I agree. I think it worked out well, and we'll see. We'll see what happens there.
Oh no. Uh, what was there anything else that you wanted to get into this week for this episode of WrestleWatch, Doug?
I don't think so. I think we hit on everything we need to hit on this week. Had some good discussions on this. So good.
Yeah, and I think next week we will be hitting Hikuleo. There was some news that came out over the wire pretty late that it seems like he might be going to WWE, more confirmed now. But surprise, surprise. I think it was Sean Ross Sapp that teased it as an unsurprising report about a signing. Yeah, it's no surprise. We're also look at, and that's probably leading up until SummerSlam, so we might look at SummerSlam slightly before that kicks off to see where things might be going with that and what other people we might be seeing at SummerSlam. It'll be a fun month of August with that and All In and the rest of the G1. So yeah, I feel like it's starting to pick back up into being busy season. It's just that this is the quiet week before the storm that's going to be coming with all the possible debuts at these the two big shows. The biggest party of the summer and the biggest event in wrestling history again. I think that's what they would market both of those as.
You know what? I'll say this. I like that we have the big weekends still for WWE shows.
Yeah.
And I hope they keep growing because pre-COVID, it was always fun going to WrestleMania weekend. Even if you weren't a big WWE fan, all the stuff around it was fun. So I hope it grows.
Yeah. So yeah, that's it for this week's episode of WrestleWatch. Hope everybody had a good time. We didn't even have to refill our coffee, but I'm gonna do that once we get off.
Absolutely, same here. So thank you very much, everybody.